Hello, hello, hello. A very warm welcome to all our friends, viewers, stakeholders, fans of Africa Rise with Susan West. It is a brilliant Sunday here in London. It's raining. Yes, it is raining, but it's a welcome development because it's been crazy with the heat. But we've been loving it. I do hope that wherever you're joining us from today, that you're having a beautiful atmosphere and that the climate conditions are very conducive. As you join this broadcast, do the needful, which is share this broadcast, invite your friends, participate by sending your questions and comments. Today on Africa Rise with Susan West, we have Dr. Sinkala, and the topic of discussion today is we're asking a question: why should Israel rejoin the African Union? For some of us, we don't know very much about the politics and the history and so on and so forth. So we have Dr. Sinkala here to help us understand the reason why Israel should rejoin the African Union. So in no time, I will be bringing him on. If you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to our channels, please do so. It is Africa Rise TV on YouTube, Africa Rise TV on Facebook, and Africa_Rise.tv on Instagram. So welcome. And remember to participate. Send in your thoughts, your comments, questions, however you may have want to participate. All right, I'm going to bring Dr. Sinkala on the screen. Good evening from London, Dr. Sinkala.
Good evening from South Africa. How are you, Suzanne? And good evening to your viewers.
I'm very well, thank you. So thank you for coming on in such short notice. We do appreciate you greatly here on this platform. So really quickly, our topic of discussion today is about the rejoining of Israel to the African Union. For some of us, it sounds weird. For some of us, we don't understand. And for some of us, we're a bit unsettled. It's unsettling to think that Israel will be part of the African Union, even though, as an observer, I don't know what that means. Maybe you'll help us understand what it means that Israel is joining. And then please explain to us what it means that they're coming in as an observer member or whatever it is.
Yes, thank you very much. Firstly, I'd like to begin to appreciate the gesture by the government of Israel that they have promised us the new deal and that of unity on the continent and on the world. And we hope that they continue this gesture. As Africa 55 states president, we do welcome the announcement by the Israeli government, decide to work with the African Union. Susan, we must remember that the Middle East is part of Africa. It's a neighbor to Egypt. Syria as well is part of Africa, and Jordan and many other countries, including Saudi Arabia. Having the difference only with the canal, the Swiss canal, which has been used for many times, that separates. But again, the history tells us that those who come from the North Africa, they had an agenda to say they are not Africans because of their skin color. And that also worried a lot of people. In fact, Cameroon, not rather, what Morocco, Morocco as well. They decided that they are not Africans, including Algeria, until recently that they've become part of the AU. So this is an agenda which is going forward, and we welcome it as we decide to work together as a continent.
Okay, so what does it mean to be an observer? Because we don't understand. Maybe you help us understand that Israel is joining and the status they're coming in as is an observer. So what does that mean?
Yeah, that is a process, of member states of AU. They actually, it's more of an induction to the Commission as a country, especially where the country has been away for a very long time. After 19 years, things have changed, the processes and how they conduct business as the organization, So this is the process that AU gets its member states to participate on the bench. They cannot just take you directly there. You must learn the culture, blend with it, and from there it too shall be confirmed that they are fully participants, of the Organization of African Union, now AU.
Yeah, from what you said earlier about um, the, um, the Middle East being part of Africa, and because of the demarcation of the Suez Canal, and that's the reason why they were separated, does that imply that Israel is actually Africa or part of Africa
Yes,
already?
we can say that the scholars have mentioned many times ago during the 1700s and the late 1800s, Africa's colonialism was started from the Arabs taking over Africa from the North Africa, many countries. We see many islands as well. They are African countries. You talk about Madagascar, you talk about Seychelles, you talk about Reunion Island, and many other islands which are around. They are part of the African continent. In fact, historians have said that the world was combined together as a mass, but as time went on and the change of climate, the islands demarcated, they moved, they took up space. I see as well this thing happening. Is it in Kenya, Kenya or Ethiopia or maybe the other part of the East Africa, where there is some sort of, a natural thing where the land just splits, that is naturally happening. And as we go on, countries, they will start moving towards either each other or apart from each other. If you look at the world map exactly, you see that it fits completely if you close the pieces together of the world map. That these are actually countries which were occupied by the Africans in the beginning before they were dispersed towards the west, the east, and the central part of Africa.
Right. So, the for us younger generation that don't understand what is the reason why Muammar Gaddafi was adamant that Israel left the African Union 19 years ago. And if he had concerns and he succeeded in making sure that Israel was kicked out of the African Union 19 years ago, why are they allowed to return now? Should we be concerned?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe they've learned in the hard way. Same which will come to the United Kingdom where you are there. They celebrated of achieving a Brexit, to distance themselves from the European Union. But again, they're forgetting that to participate in terms of economical transactions and trade within the European Union, you must be part of the European Union consortium. They realize that Mercedes-Benz are coming from Germany. So for them to participate doing business is going to be hard for them. Already they are talking about it, that it was a misguided decision that the United Kingdom government made. There's no country which is going to be an island. There's no person who's going to be an island. We all depend on each other. And Israel's stance, because of the black and dark continent and the apartheid which happened in Africa and colonialism, they thought they are not part of the bad lot of the population of the world. They thought they are, because of their skin color, they are much better than us Africans. So that's how they consider themselves as Arabs. But the descendants, Gaddafi and many others who came before him, Haile Selassie, these are Arabs we are actually black people who turned into Arabs, and they turned into coloreds and different type of races due to intermarriages which happened in the past.
Like you mentioned, I totally agree with you that no man is an island. And of course, no country can stand on its own. You have to have collaborations and, um, you know, um, deals with other
Partnership.
countries, that partnerships with other countries that will favor but your country. But in the case of Africa, we have reasons to always be scared and worried and suspicious of the reason behind certain things, because of course on the continent we've come to understand that the people who lead our countries are usually puppets of Western powers. And so people who have concerns of why Israel is returning, um, are their fears unfounded?
Look, the only problem which we have in Africa and the biggest challenge is where we do not sit on the dining table as dinners. We sit on the table as the food to be eaten. Many people have said that we do not participate in the economies and affairs of ourselves to mutually benefit, including those who are coming from elsewhere, including your neighbor. Your neighbor can say, "Let's extend my yard to your yard." What are you going to benefit? Your neighbor
Mm,
will say, I want to borrow salt today. Is he or she is going to borrow you salt again when you need it? These are the issues of living together in a cohesive environment so that we understand what are the benefits from us all instead of a one-way road. Many African countries and presidents who preside over nations, they have failed to understand and master that. That's why you find that we go outside the continent to look for foreign direct investments, for investors. Only they come here, we give them everything, and we've got an employment level so high. We wonder why our people are not employed, while we have given so much to the people who came from outside. So we must understand that doing business, it must be a mutual participating. So if President Macron wants to come to South Africa, they recently came here, what is he coming to do?
mm,
Has he done the Francophone countries, that continues to be at war? What is he going to do for South Africa? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves. And what are
mm.
we going to benefit this relationship? So, in my opinion, Israel coming back, after so long time, uh, I think they have realized that their forefathers in Israel, the stance that they took to isolate themselves from Africa and the rest of the world, it was actually not good. It has brought so many confusion. In fact, this government, the new government of a coalition which has just been made, has been as a result of the problem which has been happening either in Palestine, Jordan, and Syria relationships, even including the United States relationships.
Mm.
So they want to make the relationships and start building the country and making sure that they create partners, across the world.
Yeah. So it is obvious that Israel joining the African Union, we can more than almost 100% be sure that there will be something in for Israel as a country. How does the rest of Africa stand to gain? What does the rest of Africa stand to gain with, embracing Israel back into the African Union?
Correct. In terms of trade and government, there is inter-Africa relations, dialogue, multilateral and bilateral relationships. For those who are participating within the AU, they get those type of benefits. So we'll learn something from Israel. Israel is a country with a very small population. I think they are not more than 10 million, but they are more than 20 million outside Israel. In the United States alone in New York, they own most of those the yellow cabs you see in New York on the movies and the TVs, and those of us who's been to uh, New York, and as well they are very high in terms of technology, as well as in pharmaceutical technology, and many others that we can benefit from them, and we do that bilateral exchange. The only thing is uh, for us to identify what exchange can we bring to the rest of the African continent, having Israel on our side, in terms of partnership on the AU level.
Right. I'm just going to take quick reads of some of the comments that have come in and just acknowledge some of our viewers. Theodora Igwe, welcome. Eden Kaseta from Uganda, welcome, my brother. Bahidan Totorun Adam, welcome. Sinovia Reedley, greetings to you too. And um, there is a comment. Alalibo Jim Harry says, was Israel a member of African Union before now? Obviously, from our conversation, he would have gotten that answer. And And yes, Bahiden says, yes, all of us, we have to do our best to take Israel back to Africa. He agrees with you, Dr. Sinkala, that it's a welcome development that Israel is rejoining the African Union. Frank O.C. Mack says Israel is supposed to be part of Africa. And there's a long one from Daisy, ex Daisy, says, these so called learned people amongst us are very weak when it comes to our security. In reality, Israel doesn't recognize Africans as people. Yeah, no man is an island, but you have to be careful who is your island. We need to find a way to make ourselves stronger before we invite others into our midst. Our leaders are living luxuriously as a result of the relationships they formed with others at the expense of the regular African. Why do Israel want to be part of African unity? Um, I can understand where Daisy or Daisy's he thinks or she thinks that as independent African countries, we're not yet so strong enough, and so bringing Israel in at this time is almost as for the concerns. The concern would be maybe Israel is going to have undue advantage and influence over the rest of the African countries. What's your take on it?
No, I don't think so. Susan, the AU's got its own charter, which was signed many years ago, in 1963, when the two heads of states conveyed in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, to form the Organization of African Unity. They have the agenda already. So there's nobody who's going to come, apart from, those extremists who would like to donate so much money to the AU so that they can lure them to make certain decisions in terms of either the healthy or whatever things, that is sometimes, can be disastrous because of what we have. Corruption has been a problem in
Mm,
many sectors of our society. We also saw that the unity of AU is not that very strong, as we saw what happened recently when they opened the Pan-African Parliament here in South Africa. There was some certain confusion on the rotation and who's supposed to lead. Through those confusions, the devil normally comes in. But we pray that we shall not get anything bad from Israel, because we've been bent before. And the young people now who are agitating for good things, you can see how the questions are coming, from the viewers from this platform, that they are really concerned as well that, yes, we want Israel to be on part, but what is it in for us? What is it in for them? Are we going to be abused? From those questions, then we build up ourselves and the barriers of somebody not taking advantage. But of course, the past is the past. Our forefathers made bad choices. Their forefathers made bad choices. But it's up to us who are in the position of in charge of this generation. Are we taking our generation, our African continent, backwards where it was 300 years ago? Or are we going to build from those mistakes which were made, and we're going to move forward? How do we integrate ourselves and taking opportunities? How do we have young people from Nigeria, Cameroon, Zambia, South Africa going to work in the industries in Israel? How can we, take advantage of that opportunity to relieve our pressure on unemployment and so many socio-economic problems and challenges that we have in the continent?
right. From what you've just said, it means that Israel rejoining the African Union means that um, the borders of Israel will be open to young Africans on the continent to go, because recently there have been a lot of deportation of Black Africans from Israel, and it's been something that we couldn't really understand. And for some of us, we couldn't even understand what the number of Black Africans in Israel and why they were being deported. So it's still a little sketchy for us. But I'm going to ask a question from the perspective of security on the continent. For instance, with the invasion of ISIS or Boko Haram or all these people into the continent. coming from Libya and so on and so forth. We have read and heard in certain quarters that these people are being sponsored by some Arab nations to destabilize, especially Nigeria. So, in your opinion, what do you think that the Israel's participation in the African Union? Do you think it's going to bring some level of stability, security-wise, to these nations suffering from Islamic attack, extremist Islamic attacks?
Yes, Susan. Before I answer to that, let me come back to your erstwhile last, comment which you made. African people, we must understand that if you are not of economical value, even your parents, they'll chase you away from your house because you are not growing up, you're not looking for a job, you're not doing anything, you're a burden and the liability to that country. So the
Right,
deportation of African people has been misunderstood in the basis that Israel hates those people. Israel,
right.
like any other country, look at the United States of America. United States of America, if you get very high good skills that you can contribute economically, they will make you a citizen immediately. Many other countries they do that. So if you are going to Israel, to start begging on the street, already that they will deport you. They will chase you immediately. In fact, on many of the visas when you're visiting countries, you need to have
Mm,
everything sorted out or somewhere where you're going. On the point of peace and security on the continent and in the world, it is very important. It's always what they say that, when a man has a lot of friends, it is even better security because you've got people you can call to protect you in case something happens. So having Israel on the AU, that already beefs up the money support because each and every country contributes from 5% to 10% to 15% of their GDP towards the AU commission, for them to do their activities, for them to have soldiers, for them to draft up some policies, for them to intervene into conflicts and whatever with
mm,
their limited power because they cannot do beyond the sovereign state power of each and every country. We can see that at least they try to put up something to bring the non-state actors and the state actors together to produce something. So the addition of having Israel, and Israel, it is very, good in high tech and technology. We can see what we can use from them. We can see what we can't use from them in
mm,
benefiting. And I think the funding of extremists on the continent or in the world, these are funded not by either the Nigerians or the people from the United Kingdom or people from Israel or whatever. There's a group of people with different nationalities, who are extremists, who go for business to do certain criminal activities. There are some who are linked to Russia, the manufacturers of firearms and the detonators and all military equipments. Also, they are linked to also in France. There is also some cartels, who hires the mercenaries. We had recently Africa was almost attacked in Madagascar. They attempted to kill the president of Madagascar, and one of those extremist mercenaries who were caught were actually one of them was from France, one of them was from United States of America. So we can't say it is America or France which is doing all sorts of bad things, but it's a cabal, who are extremists. So in terms of us relating to each other and maintaining peace and security, we must know who's coming and what are they coming in for. Many of these insurgencies which has developed on the continent. In Mozambique here, we're having problems. In Nigeria, the Boko Harams, these are funded by the outside cabals who create, for instance, they are going there for money or they are coming there for something else.
right. I'll just try and take a few more reads. And Princess Ivy Osawe joining from Canada, welcome. Golden Boy says Israel is a bully country. Imbita Clavel says, I don't really find it beneficial to Africans. Simply look what's happening in the Middle East. Um, And Frank O.C. Mack says, with Israel participate, I think with Israel's participation in African, will Israel participate in African Cup of Nations? um, Israel will only loot our resources, Golden Boy says. Israel will deport you if you are black, Golden Boy continues. And then Daisy says, Israel will never open their doors wide to Africans, never. And Frank Osi says, yes, it will be good if Israel be part of African Union, but does it mean we will call Israel an African nation? That's an interesting one. So are we going to now call Israel an African nation? And I wanted to ask you, bearing in mind his question, I wanted to ask, when you talked about having friends so that you can reach out to people, having friends is very important, but also having genuine friends is more important. So, is Israel coming in as a genuine friend, or a whatever it might be? So please just go ahead and react to what Daisy says.
Yeah, look, yes, it is as much as you have authority to accept friendship on your WhatsApp or on Facebook, you've got also a legal rights to decline or block that person. If you see that that relationship is not going forward in the way that you actually wanted, you find this actually country is just coming to consume you. When you get paid, is there or she's there. When you are broke, she's very far or he's very far away. You see, those
Mm,
are the principles of relationships. So we cannot say Israel is a bad country. The world now must build to unity. We must accept somebody unless they do something bad to us, then we must decline them. Declining somebody now as Israel, on what basis are we going to use? We can't use the past because we're going to actually incriminate ourselves. We want to
mm,
stop now living in the past. We want to be moving forward to where we can live now. We can say, how can we now benefit from each other from today going forward? We can't say, no, yesterday, this is what happened. I was killed, my grandfather. This is the problem which is coming now in South Africa, where people are failing to leave the past, learn from the past, and advance going forward. There's still those racial segregations happening within blacks and white people here within the African continent and elsewhere. But we must leave those things behind. I know there's a lot of threat, but let's accept Israel as to be part of the African Union. In fact, most of African countries, they are members of the EU. They are members of the different blocks on the continent in the world. We find that we do trade with the South Africa, for instance. It does trade its own mission within the government international relations. Who deals direct with the EU? Whatever they want, those are the relationships and partnerships which they have signed. You do not specifically need to be in the EU territory. Even Africa, if we have to talk about it, because Israel is in the Middle East, it cannot be a member of the AU, which is completely wrong. In fact, the SADC region as well, if we talk about within the continent, it's a member of ECOWAS as well. It's a member of the central region and the northern Maghreb. They are all that partnership for mutual beneficial. The only thing is we must draw our benefits for us as countries and definitely as people. If Israel wants to set up a company in Nigeria or in South Africa or Zambia or DRC, can a South African, can a Zambian, can a Congolese, can a Nigerian also set up a company and trade freely in Israel without letter and hindrance, like what we've been seeing in China? Chinese, they're coming around in Africa, but when we see the Nigerians, they want to do some businesses in China and the other parts, then they start fighting it. So if they fight with us working in their territories, we must fight with them working into our territories. That's the way it's supposed to be. We shouldn't even be upset or be worried about what is going to happen. What is going to happen, we shall cross the bridge when we reach there. If they treat us very badly, we shall remember whatever which they have done, and we shall remember how they have treated Palestine. We're going to say, we don't want to deal with you. we're going to deal with Saudi Arabia. We've got those choices.
Absolutely. I do hope that this time around we don't have reasons to say that Muammar Gaddafi was right to have kicked them out. And I'll take more reads as we go on. Um, you didn't answer the question of Frank Osimax, who wants to know if Israel will now be described as an African nation.
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. We need rather a lot of new countries, sorry,
Mm,
rather on the continent to be part of the African continent. It is classified in terms of territory as Middle East. But most, if you look at some portfolios and on the maps, they say Africa and Middle East. Africa and Middle East is actually one territory, which is a continent. Like I mentioned before, that it was one continent. Yes, if AU decides to say no, can we include them in soccer? They can be included. They can apply to do that because they are part of the African continent. In fact, if you look at the map, Egypt is just next door. They drive from people drive from Egypt. They drive across the Suez Canal there into Israel or Saudi Arabia or to the Middle East from the other side. So
mm,
most of these territories are within the continent, but that is material that we have to worry about. If we can benefit from Canada, if we can benefit from Netherlands, if we can benefit from outside the continent, whoever who comes to teach us some skills as Africans so that we can solve and resolve some of our biggest challenges which we have, which is poverty, technology, infrastructure belt, and many other, including education. We've got no boundaries to judge who is coming from where. The only thing we must see them by their feet is their actions. What are we benefiting from them? We actually, last time, Susan, I actually mentioned one of the people that on the continent, we shouldn't be thinking that we must have a president who is the Igbo or who is a Zulu or who is a Bemba or whatever. As long as that person can do exactly what the people of that country or the continent wants, we don't mind even having a white president. I've talked about and again on the time that the United States of America, they don't mind who is the president, as long as somebody is performing to the servitude as a servant leadership to the continent and to the African people.
right. That brings me to taking this comment from ex Daisy Desire. He says, if we cannot see the value in a billion people, what will Israel do for us? Preaching Israel as if same, it's some kind of Christ. You know, I mean, what's the miracle Israel can perform joining the African Union for Africa if we haven't seen the value of a billion people, what a billion people can bring, and how we can take the capacity that we have in population wise and the expertise of these people? What miracle can Israel actually really perform?
Now we go in spiritual, now from politics, which is very good question. I love, when people they ask questions such as this.
Mm,
If you look about Israel, for those who believe in Christianity, is where Jesus was born. There's so much history there where people they haven't even gone to the Bethlehem where Jesus was born. There's so much things that we can learn from them. We shouldn't be looking at the first value of what they can do for us. It is what can we benefit from them. That's the question. Freedom is actually not given, it's taken. We must actually go demand and see what we can use. If we can't use anything from Israel, then we must leave it. But if we can go to Israel, say, I can use this, we can have our spiritual organizations in the Christianity industry, they will go to Israel to take some tourists there and check where Jesus was born. Some they will say they're going to go to the education system, learn about certain skills. Others they will learn about technology and software. Many of some software developers they are coming from Israel, who has shaped the world. If you look at Microsoft people who are presiding over the company Microsoft of Bill Gates is the Israelists. The Israelists, they've got a very different type of benefits that Africa can benefit from. Africans, we must also stop thinking that whoever who become friends with us, we shall benefit from us or from them, or rather they're going to help us. Africans, we must help ourselves. We must roll up our sleeves and start looking for opportunities where we can benefit. There's no miracle, abracadabra, voodoo economics, which will come. Behold, that the pigeon will come from the heart to liberate the Africans in the way that we want. That shall not happen. We'll pray until Jesus comes, if he intends to come back in the platform like this. We must stand up as young people, get education, learn from skills, and start looking for employment. If your government can't help you there where you are in Cameroon, in Nigeria, or Cote d'Ivoire, or Ghana, and other places of African nations, ask your government to give you a passport. Come to South Africa, go to Zambia, and do some other meaningful work that can sustain you and do what you can do. Don't go there as a beggar or to create a confusion or to start selling drugs or to start being a criminal. They shall chase you there if you're not going there in a very good intention. So we must look at the relationship of Israel as something maybe that we can benefit from them. Let's do some research. What can we get from Israel? There's plants there, there's fruits there, there's agriculture which we can learn from the techniques. Let us do some research. This time now it's very easy that we can learn a lot of things from one country by Googling from the internet or asking those people, our friends and families who are working in Israel or who know more much about the country Israel and many other countries in the world.
Right, because you mentioned all these things that we can benefit going to Israel to learn or to understudy them when it comes to technology and so on. But it's unfortunate that when, as Africans, we think of Israel, all we think about is the religious part aspect of it, and the religious aspect of it has not benefited Africa in any way because it's always been a drain, a spiritual journey where Christians move in their droves to Israel for what's it called now? Um, I forgot what I can't. It's here. It's not coming out. Where we spend so much money, especially in my country, Nigeria, where even the government go ahead to make it a some kind of um it's you can find it in the budget that there are money set aside to send people to Saudi Arabia if they are Muslims for pilgrimage, and sending Christians to Israel for pilgrimage. And we haven't seen where we have begun to look at Israel as a place where we can understudy and learn and pick up certain technology from them that will be beneficial to us. So, talking about it in this regard, we don't stand to gain very much. And even though I'm a Christian, I haven't seen how much benefit has come to us as a people with carrying the entire religion and religiosity on our heads. And that's just my thoughts. That's just my
Are you
head.
aware? Are you aware, Susan, of the Ten Commandments?
Yes, yes, I am.
Yeah. So if you talk about we haven't benefited from Christianity, I think that is an understatement because Africa has been united on spiritual
No, no,
Christianity.
I didn't say we haven't
Having
benefited from. I didn't
having
imply. But I'm saying that
yeah, yeah.
Africa has been drained more looking at Israel only from the aspect or perspective of religion.
Correct. Yes. So what I was saying, Susan, is many of the people, yes, they have seen that there's not much because of how the religious affairs, the Jesus industry has become now. It is not the way we used to be brought up. The Christianity values: do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not do this. We were conservative as people and we were brought up very nicely, until the Jesus industry came of these pastors who are doing a bragadabra, trying to heal and trying to get a job of somebody. That has diluted something. So we still believers, we believe that there's God, that God created us somewhere, but we should not judge the religion based on a few pastors, a few criminal activities within the industry that we have not benefited. In fact, spirituality for people, it has kept people within the communities going to church to pray. But we must not pray for things that we need physical attention. You need to pray for something that you have this physical, emotional and spiritual strength, for you to do a certain activity. You can't go to
Absolutely.
the mountain to pray and say, I need food in my house, and the bagadabra, you want food, the pie, and the chips to drop on your desk. That is not going to happen. We must
Mm,
look for work. As we pray for our strength to go there to look for work, we must write our CVs. We must make sure that we do something meaningful, and spiritually we shall be built of knowing our purpose on earth. So Israel, yes, we've talked about Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Others, they want to go there because it's a holy place. They want to go continue with their spirituality. That is another just aspect of us benefiting from Israel. Other than that, we welcome people who come to our community that they want to work with us in the agenda of the African unity. That we unite ourselves as Africans. We protect the Africa continent and the Africans from exploitation from the East and the West and the United States of America. We make sure that we treat ourselves when we are sick. This time around, in terms of the pandemic, the COVID, which has actually exposed us to see that we've got nothing. We do not have medicine. We do not even have the intellectual property rights, to manufacture a vaccine. We must call.
yeah.
I see President Cyril Ramaphosa appealing to the G7 community that please give us the permission to manufacture the AstraZeneca medication or any other for the COVID-19. So we see how we are exposed. Now we can build up from this exposure that we can become stronger. Can we work with Israel in terms of infrastructure? Can we work with them in terms of knowledge? But with, of course, we do not expect the world and miracles to come down from Israel just because Jesus was born from.
Absolutely. That's the mindset that needs to change. The manna is not going to fall from the sky just because Jesus was born in Israel. And so, for us, especially Christians, that's the mindset that needs to change. Like you said, when we focus on spirituality and in our religion, we should always understand it from the aspect of strengthening our spiritual man and not waiting for manna to fall from the sky or all our problems to just go away by praying or wishing it away, because that's the mindset that has kept us bound. Um, Alalibo Jim Harris says Israel is, as we're rounding up now, Israel is considered to be a country in western part of Asia based on their location. Why the African Union? And Leila Disoni says Israel is a racist country towards us black people. They don't hide it. And Frank Osi says Boko Haram is created by Nigeria government. And Daisy also says you can tell a man's character by the way they treat their neighbors. Palestine comes to mind. Let's discuss Israel and Palestine before we rush into some love relationship with Israel. I would rather we embrace Palestine. And King Kenyatta says, in my opinion, having Israel being an observer is a slap in the face. When our African observers, to Euro-Asian politics, and yes, if you want to react to anything I've read, I'm going to read some more again before we round up. The aspect of the observer nation, Africans are not given the same opportunity to participate in European or other Western politics. So Kenyatta goes to say he's agreeing with Dr. Sinkala. He says there is no Middle East, that's Africa. He's agreeing with you that there is no Middle East. Middle East is also part of Africa. And Leila said, why the African Union allows Israel now and they kicked out Haiti, a proper black country, the same observer privilege. AU refused Jamaica to join the African Union. That is a very, very pertinent question. Why? Dr. Sinkala, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So
Yes,
why
definitely.
was that why is it that the observer status is given to Israel but will not be given to Haiti or Jamaica to join the African Union? And these are authentic Africans taken away from the motherland.
I'm not aware of a statement that AU has issued to refuse Haiti or Jamaica to be part of the African Union. That cannot be true. That can be merely speculation or a narrative by people. You must remember that Jamaica, where Marcus Garvey was born, and where also we had our uh, musician Bob Marley,
Bob Marley.
who was the part and parcel of the development of the African continent. He came in Zimbabwe in 1980 when the Zimbabweans gained independence. He was very influential. He sang a lot of songs, Africa, Africa, about Africa. So they've been part of the African Union for many years. I don't think
Mm.
that is a very correct statement that they have refused them to be part. In fact, in many countries, like I mentioned at the beginning, they are part of the African Union as either observers or advisors, onto those status.
Leila Chipadzua Disoni says, but Dr. Sinkala, everyone else has benefited from us, and I don't see anything wrong in us looking for those who can benefit us. The birth of Jesus in Israel is also debatable. After all, religious sides of things has let us down for a long time now. So Leila is saying she doesn't. I think she must have made this contribution when you mentioned us not looking for how to take advantage, take from other people, or and so do you want to react to that?
Yeah, quickly, we people, especially Africans, must stop the syndrome of us trying to expect somebody to help us. It is us. What can we take advantage of an environment? What can we take advantage of this relationship with Israel? It begins with that. What skills do I have? Can I go to Israel and start a business? Not Israel expecting to come and knock on your door that this is a silver plate. Can you eat? No, it doesn't work like that. So if we have to start and looking for something to benefit on Israel or any other nation in the world, we must start packing up our clothes, do some research, roll up our sleeves, and see what opportunities which we can participate on the continent, on the outside the continent. Bearing in mind that there are regulations in terms of visas and what you're going there. We shouldn't be as Africans going as a destitute to United States of America or to UK thinking that they're gonna go and help you because you're a refugee. They won't do that. You actually create more problems. In fact, you are better off to be within your country where there's families, where there's friends who can help you to assist you to start a business or start something and scale either your skills or start a small business within your community. Thinking that going to Europe, going to Switzerland, and going to other places, United States of America, you're gonna go there. It is easy to flip a hamburger and eat at your leisure without working. It to be a mistake. You won't actually appreciate those countries. Many Africans has been deported, and coming outside from that, we must remember that for every benefit that we want to achieve as Africans, we must put in an input. It's called an exchange. What are you giving so that you receive? There's nothing such things that we must just receive, receive, receive,
And keep
receive
receiving.
because for
And really quickly, Jean Boissa says, it is, however, a pity that Africans have been backstabbing one nation after the other, either directly or through corporates, creating an hegemony that is detrimental. You know, that brings to mind how we can, as African nations, stop this thing of allowing people to come and divide and rule in us. I think that's where most of the concern is rising. It's coming from because we don't trust ourselves enough. We don't trust the decisions our leaders have taken. And so we are worried when Israel is coming in, even though we have established the fact that Israel originally is supposed to be part of Africa. Yet we have these concerns because we know how external forces come in and use the divide and rule system to keep us away from uniting ourselves. So yes. So as we round
Yeah,
up
Susan,
quickly, go ahead.
yeah, Susan, before we talked to 60 years ago, yes, people they came to exploit us as Africans, uh, because we were in the not a know-how, we did not know what was happening. Others came with the, spiritual and whatever, and we accepted them to come in Africa. Now, this time around, if you are mistreated, if you are exploited, you're allowing that situation to happen. And in fact, these people are coming, they are coming actually to connive with their own people, the traitors. If you look at how Democratic Republic of Congo has gone to its knees, its people are corrupt within the Congolese themselves, who are doing trade with the people from outside to exploit the people and to kill the people, bring the arms. Meanwhile, they benefit from things. So, but how can we protect that exploitation? It's by teaming up together, identifying our people in the communities that you, I see, are working for Boko Haram. We don't want Boko Haram. By refusing that something that is going to divide us, that would be the beginning of Africa going forward. We must not accept everything that is foreign to come. Somebody is coming dressed in high heel shoes or dressed in a suit or dressed like Mother Teresa, and we feel that this person is going to come and help us, is a savior. Behold, and God, please forgive me that we must look at their efforts and what they are giving us before we can engage them.
Right. And so as we round up today, I'm just going to take one more read, a few more reads, and your final thoughts for the day. Um, this is an interesting thing Layla has put down. And I think it's going to be a topic for another day, but I'm just going to say, read it. She says, but Dr. Sinkala, the 10 commandments you are talking about, you know that these were plagiarized from Ma'at, which is African concept of spirituality. That is an interesting we should talk about this another day because I know it's going to go, but you can just give a brief reaction to that, you know.
Yeah, it is very uh, I'm very glad that that was picked up. I thought they were not listening. But yes, those are 10 commandments which has kept us. The other problem, we must stop saying this is African, this is African, it has been stolen, these beads were stolen, this is what, this is humanity. If we can't use the talents that God has given us, somebody
Mm,
else is going to come and take it. So we
mm.
must make sure that we protect our territories and make sure that we utilize what we can use. I think, and you are right, I agree with you. Let us come and have a very nice conversation in terms of religion and the Jesus industry, which has contributed to the detriment of the development of the African continent.
Right. I'll just take the last reads and you just give your final thoughts and we'll call it a day. Katri Uganda says, bring Israel again is finishing African continent that immigrants country had bad intentions for Africa from way back. That's why Amin cut ties with them. Now they are using these greedy dictators to come back and impose their evil deals on us. And Boassa says, Jean Boassa says, what is Dr. Sinkala's views on the crab mentality? I think the crab in a bowl mentality he means.
What do you think, Susan?
The question is directed at you, Dr. Sinkala.
I know we can share some question in the last minute. My thought and my views has always been that as people we must protect our territories. I can't say much about that, but what I think is if we do not protect our houses, we do not protect our homes, we do not protect our countries, the invaders they will come. Whether they will come through the door or they will come through the windows, they'll find any means to come in between us. Especially now that they are not coming in their personality. They are coming with $100. They pay an African to pick up the gun and go kill some people in the village. You see the videos on social medias. It's not the white people are killing, it's us Africans who are not working together, who has
Mm,
distanced ourselves as a result of the want of money.
right. And so, your final thoughts for today, Dr. Sinkala, as we round up. Thank you.
Susan, thank you very much, for inviting me on such an occasion of education, and as well, I thank all the people who sent comments and questions, to participate. And I think this is a platform of alternative media that gives us a chance to speak freely. We shall have this many more times, to engage with the people. And what I can say that, having Israel to join or rejoin rather the AU, that has to give us confidence, that there is another country who supports our core, the development of the economical hub of Africa. The only thing is we must be very careful on people and countries who comes. We must know what we want. We want to sit on the table of civilization as diners to enjoy the fruits of being an African. I thank you.
A- Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Sinkala. Have a good evening. Oh, yes. And so there you have it. With the contributions Dr. Sinkala has brought forward, shared with us today, of course, we can understand that as Africans, what we need to do now is to come to a place where we understand that bringing our best foot forward is the only way to win in this game. We have gone beyond the point of awakening, awakening or waking up. Now we are at a place where we are awoken, our eyes are open, our minds are open, we have more information, we know who we are. Yes, unfortunately, we have misleaders, as many of us, my sister Leila Disoni will call them misleaders on the continent. But as young Africans, the future of Africa is in our hands. And because we are more knowledgeable, more educated, and we have more insight, and we have platforms like this, that it cannot control the sort of knowledge that we share amongst ourselves. We will go ahead to educate ourselves, to enlighten us and make us understand that the ball is in our court, as far as we know that we are not going to go to the table as beggars. We're not going to go to the table sitting under the table and waiting for crumbs to fall, but that we're going to go prepared, that this is a generation where we put our best foot forward, we bring our best minds and make sure that we are on the table with the people and everyone who matters in curbing out a future for ourselves. Thank you for joining us on today's broadcast. Thanks to everyone who sent in comments and questions. As always, I love you so very much. God bless you, and God willing, I will see you again next weekend. If you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed to our channels, please do so. We want to make sure that this platform grows bigger and bigger and bigger and do for us what it needs to do, which is to meet and reach out to as many people as possible. So please keep sharing our broadcast, keep sharing, subscribe, and continue to keep it locked here and participate. Like and follow us on Facebook and YouTube on Africa Rise TV. On Instagram, it is Africa_Rise.tv. I'll see you again next weekend, God willing. Goodbye. God bless you.